Following in the footsteps of 2010's Metro 2033, Metro Last Light again drops players deep into the tunnels of Moscow's metro, a place that is now home to what could be the final remnants of humanity. In Metro 2033, the rich environments in the titular subway tunnels were the star, boasting an atmosphere that was both bleak and beautiful at the same time. Last Light continues this tradition, but thankfully also fixes some of the problems that plagued its predecessor. Last Light picks up where 2033 left off, dropping players back into the boots of Artyom, a man responsible for destroying the Dark Ones, a race of psychic creatures who call the irradiated surface of Moscow home. At the outset of Last Light, Artyom is told that a lone Dark One has survived and he is tasked with finding it. And while finding the Dark One is the central goal of Artyom's journey, before long he finds himself entangled in a web of political intrigue between the opposing factions that reside in the Metro. The game weaves its multi-layered plot well, providing an emotionally compelling narrative from beginning to end. In terms of gameplay, veterans of the Metro will notice immediate improvements to the game's combat. Gunplay is much sharper this time around, with Last Light sporting a fluidity in shootouts that was missing in its predecessor. With a variety of weapon attachments available from the merchants in the Metro, players can tailor their weapon loadout to their playstyle, adding a layer of flexibility to the shootouts as well. With an array of handguns, rifles, shotguns, and even air-powered pneumatic weapons at your disposal, most players will be able to find a comfortable loadout that suits their playstyle. For players looking for a more subtle take on combat, Last Light also provides plenty of opportunities for stealthy approaches. The game commonly presents players with a dimly lit room full of bad guys, and it's up to the player to weave their way through it how they see fit. During these sequences, players can sneak up on enemies and deliver a lethal blow with their knife, or they can take a non-lethal approach and take down enemies with some nasty looking punches to the face. The downside of these sequences is that enemies are generally dumber than rocks and are very easy to sneak up on. Unfortunately, the stealthy approach doesn't work on most of the Metro's more beastly enemies. Anytime Artyom travels to the surface, he's usually met with an array of mutated animals, all of whom present a different challenge than their human counterparts. The enemies aren't much smarter here though, as most enemies are content with simply charging right at you and taking turns clubbing you to death. There are some unique encounters however, including some terribly creepy treks into catacombs teeming with giant spiders that look and act like they just crawled out of my nightmares. The mutants aren't the only dangers on the surface, however, as Artyom also has to contend with the harsh conditions of the irradiated corpse of Moscow. On any trip to the surface, a gas mask is a necessity, and this brings a new set of challenges to the table. Gas masks require filters, which are only usable for a certain amount of time before they need to be changed out, meaning players will have to keep an eye out for spare filters. Masks can also be cracked and broken as Artyom takes damage from his foes, and will occasionally have to have blood or dirt wiped off the visor just to see what's going on. When it comes to the game's visuals, the console versions of Last Light don't compare well to the PC version, but thankfully the game will still look good on your console of choice. Textures and effects do take a hit, but the well-crafted environments still create a heavy, tense atmosphere that will keep players on their toes. Areas in the Metro are often beautiful, even in their state of decay, and there's a good visual variety that helps each section of the game feel fresh. For all of the things that Last Light does well, it isn't without problems. The AI leaves a lot to be desired, and on the normal difficulty, things are a bit too easy. There was only one point in the game where I found myself low on ammo, and before long I was restocked and well equipped again. This approachability will help newcomers to the series ease their way into the Metro, but for veteran players, a higher difficulty is recommended right out of the box. At the end of the day, Metro Last Light is a triumph. The game marries atmosphere, narrative, horror, and action seamlessly, providing an experience unlike any other on the market. The game took me a solid 10 hours to complete on the normal difficulty, and when it was over, I was eager to start another playthrough. Anyone looking for a unique single-player shooter experience should jump right in, and even console players shouldn't be afraid to take a dive into the Metro.